Clara's mornings were rituals of chaos. Two kids scrambling for cereal, her husband Kyle gulping coffee while scrolling work emails, the dog barking at squirrels. But today, silence lingered after the school bus left. That's when the call came. Unknown number. Aunt Marlene's voice trembled through the speaker, frail yet familiar. "It's me. I need your help. Can you come here?" Clara frowned. Marlene hadn't called in years. Not since the funeral. Not since she'd barricaded herself in that decaying farmhouse, refusing to leave even as the fields died and the neighbors moved away. "I'm alone out here," Marlene had written last winter. "But the quiet suits me." Now her voice cracked. "Please hurry." The drive to Hollowbrook took exactly 57 minutes, a fact Clara noted bitterly as her GPS flickered and died, leaving her to navigate the skeletal backroads alone. The city sprawl gave way to patchwork fields and sun-bleached barns, then to dense pine forests that leaned too close to the asphalt, their shadows clawing at her windshield. She passed Hollow Creek Gas and Go just as its flickering sign sputtered to life. Live bait. The lot was empty except for a rusted pickup, its hood gaping open like a scream. Clara tightened her grip on the wheel. Marlene's gravel drive was barely a road anymore, a gash in the earth choked with weeds. The farmhouse emerged slowly, a relic hunched under a dishwater sky. Its porch sagged, the paint peeling in leprous flakes, and a rusted Ford pickup sat abandoned in the field, the driver's door hanging open. Keys dangled from the ignition, swaying in the wind. Clara killed the engine. The silence was absolute. No bird song. No wind, just the faint tick-tick of cooling metal as the car settled. "Aunt Marlene," she called out, her voice vanishing into the stillness. The front door hung ajar, creaking faintly as she nudged it open. The smell hit her first, rotten food and damp wood, undercut by something sharper, coppery. A half-eaten casserole moldered on the table, a fork still stabbed upright in the congealed mess, as if someone had left mid-meal. Upstairs, Marlene's bedroom held vials of insulin expired 2 years prior, a Bible bookmarked at Psalms, and a framed photo of her late husband, Jacob, grinning beside a tractor. Dust coated everything, but no Marlene. Then, the floorboards groaned, a sound too deliberate to be the house settling. Clara stepped outside and dialed 911. No signal. The screen's glow felt absurdly bright in the suffocating gray light. Across the field, a shadow watched. Tall, gaunt, draped in a black overcoat that seemed to bleed into the gloom. His face was a ruin of scars, eyes unblinking, pupils dilated and as black as oil. The neighbor. He stared. Not a twitch, not a breath. Just that hollow, fixed gaze. Seconds stretched. Clara's thumb hovered over the redial button, her pulse roaring in her ears. Then, with a jerkiness that didn't seem entirely human, he turned and began walking, not toward her, but to his own house. His movements were stiff, mechanical, like a puppet dragged by invisible strings. She exhaled shakily. Maybe he was leaving. Maybe. But he stopped at his porch window. Slowly, deliberately, he pressed a palm to the glass, his head swiveling back toward her. Clara's phone slipped from her sweat-slicked hand, vanishing into the weeds. She stumbled back, her sneaker catching on a root, and scrambled for the farmhouse door. The neighbor's stare burned into her spine as she slammed it shut, throwing the deadbolt with trembling hands. Through the dusty front window, she watched him peel his palm from the glass, leaving a smeared handprint. Then he closed the curtain, plunging his house into void-like darkness. Inside, the only sound was her ragged breathing and the faint, metallic click of the basement door unlatching upstairs. The basement door stood at the end of the hallway, its hinges rusted, the wood swollen and splintered. Clara gripped the handle. The metal flaked under her palm. It resisted, then gave with a screech that echoed through the hollow house. The stairs descended into blackness, each step groaning under her weight. The beam of her flashlight trembled as she climbed down, the air thickening with every breath. Sweet rot, iron, ammonia. At the bottom, the beam caught rows of shelves sagging under the weight of cassette tapes. Names were scrawled in shaky cursive on each spine. Sarah, Ben, Ruth, Marlene. A tape recorder sat atop a warped desk, dust coating its buttons. Clara pressed play. "Clara, I need you. Please hurry." Her aunt's voice. "Perfect." Another tape crackled. "Mom, the car broke down. Come quick." A girl's plea, frayed at the edges. Another. "Dad, I'm trapped at the quarry." A boy's sob, swallowed by static. The flashlight flickered. Clara turned, and its beam grazed a skeletal hand jutting from beneath a moldering tarp. Aunt Marlene. Other shapes materialized in the dark. A child's sneaker, a man's wristwatch frozen at 3:07, a purse spilling cherry red lipstick, and carnival ticket stubs from a show long closed. Above, the floorboards creaked again. Then, a voice, soft, toneless, drifted down the stairs. "You found them." The floorboards groaned once more, a low, deliberate sound, as if the house itself were exhaling. Clara froze. Footsteps thudded upstairs. Not the creak of old wood settling, but something heavy, purposeful. Each step vibrated through the floor, closer, closer, until the basement door shuddered open. At the top of the stairs, the neighbor stood, backlit by the dim hallway light. An iron rod glistened in his hand, streaks of dried brown marring its surface. His face was a mask, no rage, no hunger, just those black, unblinking eyes. Clara grabbed a rusted shovel, its edge jagged, and as he descended slowly, "No hurry," she swung at his knee. The shovel connected with a sickening crack. His leg bent unnaturally, yet he did not stumble, nor did he scream. Not even a blink. He kept coming. The rod whistled through the air. Clara ducked, but the metal caught her shoulder, tearing through fabric and skin. Blood bloomed, hot and bright. She screamed, a sound swallowed by the damp walls. He swung again. She blocked with the shovel. The impact numbed her arms. The rod screeched against metal, sparks flying. Clara scrambled backward up the stairs, tripping over her own feet. He followed, his gait uneven from the shattered knee, but relentless. His breaths were silent. No grunts, no curses, just the tap-tap of the rod dragging against the steps. At the top, she slammed the door. He struck it once, splintering the wood, and she fled into the storm-gray light of the farmhouse, her blood leaving a trail on the floorboards behind her. The SUV's tires hissed as they deflated into rubber husks. Clara locked herself in and dialed 911 with blood-slick fingers. Suddenly, the passenger window exploded. Glass shards sprayed everywhere as the neighbor's arm snaked through, clawing at her face. Clara slammed her foot on the gas. The car lurched forward, tires grinding on rims and fishtailing wildly. The rear bumper slammed him into an oak with a sickening crunch. She stole a glance in the rearview mirror. He stood there, head cocked at a broken angle, jaw unhinged, yet he still advanced, no limp, no sound. His scarred face remained blank as he picked up the iron rod and broke into a sprint. Clara plunged into the cornfield. The stalks whipped against her face like razors. Behind her, the neighbor's footsteps fell methodically and unhurriedly, as if he already knew how this would end. She stumbled. Her knees were gouged by gravel. Then her hand slammed onto something jagged, a rusted scythe blade, half buried in dirt. She wrenched it free just as the cornstalks parted. There he was, standing with the iron rod glinting in his grasp, his face an unreadable blank slate. Clara lunged, driving the blade deep into his thigh. The metal crunched through denim, flesh, and bone. For the first time, he faltered. His left leg buckled, the knee bending at an unnatural angle. Black, tar-like ooze seeped from the wound, yet his expression never changed. No pain, no rage. Only those hollow, dilated pupils fixed on her. Clara scrambled back as he swung the rod. It grazed her hip, and pain exploded white-hot. She screamed and stumbled deeper into the field as the corn stalks closed around her like a cage. He followed, but now his steps were slower, dragging his injured leg. The rhythm of his footsteps fractured. Clara ran, lungs burning, toward the distant hum of the highway. The neighbor's ragged breaths faded behind her, his limp widening the gap. Unbeknownst to her, the 911 call she'd made from the car, though cut short, had connected. The dispatcher traced the signal to the farmhouse's coordinates, etching them into the system seconds before her phone died. A siren wailed. Red and blue lights strobed through the corn. "Here," she screamed, her voice raw. In one final lunge, the neighbor reached for her, fingers brushing her hair as she vaulted into a ditch. Police cruisers skidded to a halt, officers shouting. Shots rang out. He vanished into the corn, his limp dissolving into the shadows, as if the wound had never existed. Later, the police found 9 bodies in the farmhouse basement. Aunt Marlene, her skeletal hands still adorned with the wedding ring Clara remembered from childhood. Sarah Whitley, a college student who'd vanished 3 months ago after texting, picking up a shift at Hollow Creek Gas and Go. Ben Hooper, the town mechanic, his body mummified in a corner, a wrench clutched in his bony grip. And others, faces unrecognizable, names forgotten, twisted in the dark. The neighbor? Gone. No footprints, no trace. Clara's wounds eventually scabbed over, but sleep brought no peace. Then, one night, her husband's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He played the voicemail on speaker. "Help me, please." At that moment, Clara's own scream, raw and primal, ripped through the darkness, echoing the terror of the cornfield chase. Jake and Mia had made a life out of chasing horizons. Their rusted caravan, a loyal husky named Bear, and a map peppered with scribbled destinations. It was freedom. But the horizon they found that day wasn't on any map. A wrong turn off a mud-slick highway led them to a cliff overlooking a slate-gray sea. The sky hung low, heavy as a burial shroud. GPS had flatlined miles back, yet Jake grinned. "Perfect," he said. "No tourists. Just us." They parked the caravan and trekked to the beach. The waves hissed, unnervingly quiet, and the water looked wrong, thick like liquid ash. Bear bounded ahead, paws kicking up sand, and plunged into the surf. "Bear, no," Mia shouted. In an instant, the dog vanished into a wall of fog that rolled in faster than any fog should. 1 second, Bear's tail wagged in the shallows. The next, he was gone. Jake stripped off his shirt. "I'll get him," he declared. "Don't," Mia said, grabbing his arm. "This place, it feels wrong." But Jake dove in. Mia waited, seconds, then minutes. The fog swallowed the sea, the cliff, the sun. Silence pressed against her ears, hollow and suffocating. "Jake," she screamed. "Bear." No echo, no bark. She waded in. The water clung to her skin, cold and oily. 10 strokes in, the fog thickened. 20, 30, the shore vanished. Time warped. She swam until her arms burned, until her throat was raw from screaming. Exhaustion dragged her under. Water flooded her lungs, and she jolted awake, gasping, back at the shoreline. The fog was gone. Sunlight glinted off the waves. Bear barked in the distance. "What the hell?" she whispered. But when she blinked, the fog returned. The first time Mia drowned, it began with the cold. She'd been treading water for hours, screaming Jake's name until her voice frayed. The fog pressed against her skin, clammy and suffocating, erasing the horizon, the sky, even the sound of her thrashing. When exhaustion finally dragged her under, the water flooded her lungs, a searing, silver pain, and then she woke. Back in the fog, no shore, no storm, no raft, Just the same endless gray sea, the same silence, the same cold. Again, each loop started the same. Mia floating in the void, the fog so thick she couldn't see her own hands. Sometimes the water burned like acid. Sometimes it froze her limbs stiff. Once, she felt something brush her leg, skeletal fingers, perhaps, before the drowning reset her. She tried swimming in straight lines, counting strokes, 100, 200, 500. Nothing. She tried staying still, but the cold gnawed deeper. She tried screaming, yet the fog devoured her voice. On the 4th loop, or the 40th, time meant nothing here. She saw Jake. He materialized a few feet away, treading water, his face gaunt and blue. "Mia," he rasped, reaching for her. She lunged, but her hands passed through him like smoke. "It's a trick," she whispered. The next loop, Bear appeared, formatted with algae, eyes milky. He paddled toward her, whining. Mia embraced him, sobbing, until his body disintegrated into kelp and rot. The fog never lifted, but the water changed. On loop 12 or 20, 100, Mia dove. Below, the seafloor glowed faintly. Skeletons lay tangled in seaweed, some in modern clothes, others in tattered colonial garb. A school of fish darted past, translucent, their skeletons visible. One turned its hollow eyes toward her, as if to say, "You're one of us now." Mia surfaced, gasping. She stopped fighting. On a loop where the water felt like syrup, Mia floated on her back and let the fog press down. Maybe this is hell, she thought, or purgatory, or a glitch. Then a shape emerged, not Jake, not Bear, but a woman in a waterlogged Victorian dress, her face a skull draped in seaweed. She pointed downward. Mia dove. The skeletons drew nearer, their arms outstretched. She swam deeper, pressure crushing her ribs, until her fingers brushed bone, and the loop reset. Now, Mia lets the currents take her. Sometimes she swims, sometimes she sinks. Sometimes she claws at the fog, screaming curses at nothing. The loops blend. The cold becomes part of her. She doesn't know if Jake and Bear are dead, or if they're trapped here too, in their own private hells. She doesn't care anymore. On the 47th loop, or the 100th, Mia stopped counting. She spotted it. A splintered raft, its planks bleached and warped, drifting just beyond her fingertips. She swam, muscles screaming, and hauled herself onto the rotting wood. No oars, no sail, just a frayed rope, coiled like a dead snake. The storm hit at dusk. Waves devoured the raft, tossing Mia into the blackened sea. She clawed her way back each time, nails splintering, salt water scouring her throat raw. Lightning fissured the sky, illuminating shapes beneath the waves, skeletal hands reaching, jaws unhinged. "And no," she roared, lashing the rope around her waist. Not again. The raft snapped in half. Mia plunged into the depths, the skeleton's fingers grazing her ankles. And she woke on a beach. Sand gritted her teeth. Sunlight stabbed her eyes. Voices buzzed. A couple in neon swimsuits crouched over her. "Holy shit, she's alive." Mia tried to speak, but her tongue swelled, salt-crusted. A man draped a towel over her shivering body. "You're okay," said a woman, too brightly. "We called an ambulance." The beach was wrong. Not the cliffside's gray expanse, but a tourist trap. Palm trees, ice cream stands, children shrieking in the surf. The doctors called it a miracle. Hypothermia, severe dehydration. "You're lucky those backpackers found you," the nurse said as she adjusted Mia's fore. "They said you washed up near Coral Cove. You've been missing for." "Well, they'll explain later." But the police had questions. No one named Jake or Bear was reported missing, the officer said, flipping through his notes. "And Coral Cove, ma'am, that's over 200 miles north of where you said you were camping. We've combed the area. No trace of the spot you described." Mia's throat tightened. "But I was there. I saw it. The fog, the sea, The officer held up a hand. We checked satellite imagery, local records, everything. There's no cliff or beach matching your description within a 300-mile radius. And your GPS? He tapped his pen against the file. It wasn't working, right? We have no way to trace your last known location. Mia stared at the blank map on his screen. The numbers flickered. What's that? She whispered. The officer frowned. What's what? Night draped the hospital in silence. Mia lay in her narrow bed, the sheets scratchy against her skin, the 4 in her arm leaching cold into her veins. The heart monitor beeped steadily, yet beneath its rhythm, she heard it, the distant crash of waves. Jake. His voice seeped through the walls, frayed and desperate. Mia, where are you? Bear's whine followed, sharp and panicked, clawing at her eardrums. Mia fumbled for the call button, jamming it with trembling fingers. Nurse. Someone. Her voice echoed down the empty hallway, a cruel mockery of her fear. The room chilled. Frost bloomed across the window pane as if nature itself were warning her. Her breath caught when fog slithered under the door, thick, serpentine, and swallowed the floor, the monitors, the light. Bear, she whispered, voice barely audible. The whine twisted into a gurgle, wet and choking, as if the fog had a hunger of its own. She tried to scream, but the fog coiled into her lungs, heavy as seawater, rendering her limbs leaden. The heart monitor flatlined, its shrill alarm swallowed by a roar reminiscent of crashing waves. In her fading vision, the fog parted for a fleeting moment, just enough for her to glimpse the ocean outside her window, black and endless. There, breaking the surface, was Jake's pale hand, a spectral promise of something lost.